Nintendo is best known for Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon, but what about the franchise that's both adorable and terrifying at the same time? Though they may look cute, these games are full of stress and strategy, but are they actually good? The first Pikmin game released in October 2001 in Japan, but its roots can be traced all the way back to Space World 2000. Super Mario 128 was a tech demo that Nintendo used to show off the power of the GameCube. Because what's better than Mario 64?
The Spanish Inquisition.
The demo wasn't anything crazy. It showed 128 Marios running around in pure chaos, but for the time, having 128 separate characters on screen at once, without starting your console on fire, was really impressive. But as cool as it would have been to have 128 Marios on screen, I feel like it would have given me whiplash. So Miyamoto had a brilliant new idea, and he created a brand new franchise we've come to know as Pikmin. Using the infrastructure from the Mario 128 tech demo, they originally created a game called Adam and Eve, a civilization simulation game. However, the development team realized that nobody wanted to play that, but after being inspired by Miyamoto's interest in gardening, they had the idea to make a strategy game that featured these little plant-like creatures known as Pikmin. You play as Captain Olimar, a spaceship captain who crash lands on a planet that looks mysteriously like Earth. During the crash, his spaceship is horribly damaged, and he only has 30 days to recover all of the missing parts for his ship because he is allergic to oxygen.
Fresh air. My only weakness.
There was a 0% chance that Olimar would survive. However, he encounters this new species called Pikmin, small plant-like creatures that he orders around with a whistle in order to carry things and reach places that he would not be able to get to himself. And story-wise, that's pretty much it. The real fun of this game comes from exploring the world at a microscopic size. Whether you're plucking Pikmin out of the ground, gathering resources to get more, or just trying to get off the planet in 30 days, there is a ton of fun to be had. During the day, you explore the planet, gathering resources like little pellets in order to get more Pikmin, where they take the pellets over to their spaceship called the Onion, and it gets absorbed and it shoots out little Pikmin. This also works with the enemies you'll fight along the way, the most famous of which being a Bulborb, and honestly, this is gonna make me not sleep for a while. But the main thing you're looking for are the parts to your ship, which will help you get off the planet, because even though Pikmin are cute, oxygen poisoning does not sound fun. There are 30 separate parts for your ship you need to collect throughout the game, and the pressure to collect all 30 parts before the end of the 30th day is a real driving force of what makes this game great. It isn't that hard to collect everything, especially if you play through the game multiple times. The amount of parts you collect on the 30 days changes the ending of the game, which is nice because having 3 separate endings really adds to the replay value, which is one of the best parts about this game. If you're like me, the first time you play, it's gonna take you 20 something days to collect everything, but the more I've played it, I've been able to cut it down substantially. Learning how to best use all of your Pikmin is an incredibly fun gameplay loop, where the more you play, the better you are at managing your resources, which is really what this game is all about. There is always something to do, whether it's beating up enemies, collecting resources, or plucking every single Pikmin out of the ground one at a time, because for some reason using the whistle was not good enough. You will always have something that you should be doing, and knowing how to properly use your time is one of the most important parts of this game. From start to finish, each day is only about 13 minutes, so making the most of your time is extremely important. I always find myself doing something, whether it's running around checking on one group of Pikmin's task, or exploring an area to see what there is to find. Managing your time and resources is part of what makes this game fun, but also incredibly stressful. For being on the GameCube, this game runs incredibly well. You can have 100 Pikmin on screen at once, all doing different tasks, and you won't notice any real performance issues, which speaks to how well this game runs. For the time, the AI was surprisingly good. So wherever your Pikmin lands, it starts doing whatever task is closest to them. Whether it's picking up an item or fighting an enemy, it works incredibly well. That's not to say it's perfect. There were a lot of times where my Pikmin would just start freaking out, but those issues were few and far between. For the first game, having 3 separate types of Pikmin was really nice. It allowed for a lot of variety in the puzzles, where sometimes you'll need to change your Pikmin's type in the middle of a puzzle. The red Pikmin are immune to fire and really strong in combat, the blue Pikmin are waterproof, and the yellow Pikmin can be thrown higher and can carry bombs.
Oh, well now I know who I'm keeping my eye on.
The biggest problem with the first Pikmin game was that the controls were just not that good. Controlling the camera did not work very well, and having to use the sticks to aim and throw Pikmin does not feel intuitive at all. Luckily, that was fixed with New Play Control Pikmin for the Wii. Now, I am not a fan of New Play Control at all, only because the cases look really bad, but gameplay and performance-wise, they all work incredibly well. Pikmin was in desperate need for a control upgrade, and that was done here perfectly. Using a Wiimote and nunchuck to play this game feels a lot better. Pointing at the screen and aiming where you want to throw your Pikmin works perfectly, and it makes playing through Pikmin 1 more accessible and fun because my Pikmin actually do what I want them to do. They also upgraded the camera and the whistle system to make it even more responsive, and of course the best change is being to rewind a day to a previous day. Especially in the first game where there was a strict time limit, losing a bunch of Pikmin can be an absolute game breaker where sometimes it would be worth restarting the game. But having the option to rewind the day makes the game so much more accessible. If you're trying to get into Pikmin, I still think the first is the best way to hop into the series, and even though I'm not really a fan of having a 30-day strict time limit, it is still the best way to hop into the series for the first time. But in April of 2004 on the GameCube, we got Pikmin 2. Though it came out on the same day as Super Smash Bros. Melee, Pikmin 1 did pretty well, selling well over 1 million copies. So of course Nintendo wanted a round 2, this time trying to improve on a lot of things people didn't love about the original. After barely surviving his journey, Olimar lands back on his home planet, but he quickly finds out his company is going bankrupt. And in order to keep his knees from being broken, Olimar's boss tells him he needs to go back to the same planet and collect treasure. But this time he's not going about it alone, and his coworker slash absolute pile of tragedy, Louie, is joining him on this journey. On the way back to the planet, Olimar crashes again, probably because he can't see over the giant nose.
Be careful, he might smell you talking trash.
And thus begins their journey to collect as much treasure as humanly possible. Pikmin 2 is just more of the same, in the best way possible, expanding on the almost perfect gameplay of the original by adding a lot of new things that make the gameplay even more engaging. In the first game, you only control Olimar, and that's fine, but having just one character made it so you had to have a lot of faith that your Pikmin were going to do what you told them, and not get eaten in the process. But having both Olimar and Louie makes multitasking so much better. Splitting up between two characters means you can be twice as efficient, collecting as much treasure as you possibly can, changing the goal of the game from trying to survive on an alien planet to going back and trying to loot it for everything it's worth. Changes the stakes of the game a lot, which is something I don't really love. The stakes of having to get off the planet within 30 days or you're going to succumb to oxygen poisoning were really nice, even though the time limit was pretty annoying. And though collecting treasure gets rid of the stakes almost entirely, I still love the idea of trying to loot the planet. A big problem a lot of people have with the original is that strict 30-day time limit, but they got rid of that and now you can explore to your heart's content. They still have a time limit on every individual day, but now on day 29 you're not worried about what's gonna happen. The world you explore is pretty much the same as it was in the original, with some seasonal changes that really play into that nature atmosphere they were trying to cultivate. So if you were a fan of the original Pikmin game, there was just more of that. But beyond treasure hunting, there were some new forms of Pikmin as well. There's the purple Pikmin, which are very thick. They are 10 times stronger than a standard Pikmin and stun when thrown at enemies. I'm not jealous of Olimar for having to throw them, but I would jump in front of a car to save one of these. There was also the new white Pikmin.
I think he needs some eye drops.
White Pikmin are the fastest of the Pikmin types and can dig up treasure that's underground, and they also do poison damage to enemies, which is a really cool idea. Yellow Pikmin got reworked to be resistant to electricity, which is extremely nice, because electricity is the single most broken tool an enemy can use, where it will just one-shot pretty much everything. In caves, you can find the new Bulbmin, which are Pikmin that look like Bulborbs. I think it just wants to be loved, but when all of these changes come together, it makes for an experience that feels extremely new. Sure, you're doing pretty much the same thing, except this time you're grabbing treasure, but the puzzles and enemies you fight along the way are all fun to take on. Even the brand new caves. I personally think caves are fine. A lot of people think these are the worst things to ever happen to mankind, and while I wouldn't go that far, I do see a lot of the problems, but at the same time, they have a lot of replay value. Caves in this game are randomly generated dungeons where time does not pass, and your goal is to explore all the way through the dungeon to get an awesome power-up, but they are extremely difficult and not for the best reasons. Whatever Pikmin you go into a cave with are the only Pikmin you're able to get, with a couple exceptions. The deeper you go into a cave, the stronger enemies become, and once you enter a cave, you cannot leave leave until you reach the exit. Similar to a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, the caves are randomly generated and will change each time you play, not in a way that's too crazy, but just enough to make it different every time you play. Trying to organize your Pikmin in the narrow passes of a cave can be really aggravating, and the boss battles that happen at the end of each cave were really fun. A lot of them are reused bosses, but in my opinion, that shouldn't matter. Having a brand new boss in every cave would be nice, but there's a subtle relief of running into a boss you already know how to fight after a long and excruciatingly painful trip through a cave. Whenever I play Pikmin 2, I look forward to going through the caves. Getting a break from the overworld and having a roguelike Pikmin experience is fun, even if it may cause you to go bald at an early age. There were some pretty annoying parts of the game, like fighting the water wraith, because this thing is invincible unless you have purple Pikmin, and without spoiling it, the final boss of this game makes me want to break my controller in half. But the most underrated part about this game is the new focus on multiplayer, with a bunch of different ways for you and a friend to take on this game together. Whether you're going through challenge mode to get through certain areas with limited resources, or you're duking it out in a battle mode, there is a lot to do to keep you and friends happy for a long time. But being on the GameCube, it has the exact same issue as Pikmin 1, where the GameCube controller is not super fun for this game. But luckily, just like the first game, we got new play control Pikmin 2. Even though I still hate the case, I still think the definitive way to play both Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2 is on the Wii. There was a lot of beef going around from 2009 to 2012, because in 2009 in Japan and Europe this released, but for some reason in North America it didn't release until 2012.
I wrote arguably too many letters during those years.
Every single part about this game felt more natural playing on the Wii. It could just be me, but the Pikmin AI felt a lot better in the Wii version, where a lot of my Pikmin didn't trip or get lost nearly as much. Switching between Olimar and Louie felt a lot more natural, and of course, using motion controls felt incredible. Even though they didn't add really any new content, this is one of the few times I would say it's much better to pick up this version than trying to play this on the GameCube. Every part about it looks, feels, and controls 100% better, and in my opinion, to this day, this is still the best way to play these games, being just a little bit better than playing on the Switch. Pikmin 1 and 2 came out for the Switch in June of 2023, and brought both games to the console in one nice package. I think the Switch upgrade to both these games are incredible, and most of the changes that were added to the new play control games remains in place here. The new updated control scheme plays similar to Pikmin 3 Deluxe and Pikmin 4, adding a lot of the quality of life changes that come along with it. A lot of the new changes are minor, but still very nice, like being able to hold the A button to pick all of the Pikmin at one time, so you don't have to sit there and rapidly hit A to pluck every single Pikmin out of the ground. And though this is definitely the most accessible way to play them, and they tried their best to make the Joy-Cons work like the Wiimote and Nunchuck, to me, it just isn't the same. There is just something so special about the Wiimote and Nunchuck that makes it hard to play Pikmin for me any other way. But if it's your first time playing a Pikmin game and you don't own a Wii or a Wii U, playing on the Switch is absolutely fine. But after a couple years of waiting from our last Pikmin adventure, we finally got Pikmin 3 on the Wii U. Pikmin 3 was originally planned to be a Wii game, however, after some technical limitations, they decided to wait until the Wii U's life cycle in order to release the game. Miyamoto wanted to make this the definitive Pikmin game for the HD era, saying to Game Informer in 2013, "Pikmin 3 is the Pikmin game I always wanted to make. With the Wii U's power, we can create environments that feel real and immersive, making the world feel alive in ways we couldn't before." And honestly, he was right, this world feels alive. Pikmin 3 took an entirely new swing at the story, having 3 new characters that you play as on your journey. They don't even come from the same planet as Olimar, they come from Kopai, a planet that is almost entirely run out of food and is now taken to the cosmos to find more. However, they only eat fruit, so finding food is a lot easier said than done. Luckily, they find a familiar planet to land on, and by land I mean horribly crash into, because for some reason being small means you can't fly, and after crashing into the planet you begin the game. Having the overarching goal of needing to gather fruit in order to save your planet is a brilliant idea. It combines the collectathon nature of Pikmin 2 with the stakes of Pikmin 1, making the perfect setup for a Pikmin game. You play as 3 brand new characters, being Alf, Brittany, and Charlie, and as much as I love Olimar and can tolerate Louie, I think this is the best selection selection of characters the series has ever had. I would jump in front of a moving train to save Alf, and the others are also fine. They're at least better than Louie. After almost a decade, getting a new Pikmin game was a breath of fresh air, and they changed a lot of things that people had come to know and love about the formula, but even with all of the changes, they managed to make what is, in my opinion, the best Pikmin game of all time. This took the best parts of both of the first Pikmin games and put them together. Pikmin 1 is really fun, even though it's a little short, and it was missing a lot of the details that Pikmin 2 had, including the new challenges, the focus on co-op, and the new Pikmin, which came together to make 2 feel different from the original. But Pikmin 3 took all of the best parts of the other games and blended them together. Even though I loved them, they got rid of the underground caves, which I understand to a point, but I would have loved to see them return as an optional mode, just to add some more replayability to the game. They also got rid of the purple and white Pikmin in the story mode.
What? No, they can't do that. That's my son.
And as much as that devastates me to my very core, I do understand why they did it. The purple and white Pikmin didn't have the same level of balance the first 3 did, and if they were going to have new Pikmin, it makes sense to replace the ones they added in the last game. Luckily, they are still available in the mission modes, so I didn't have to cry myself to sleep as much as I was planning on. There's the new rock Pikmin, which is one of my favorite things ever added to Pikmin. Since they're a rock, they're hard, and they're really good at breaking things, though they're not able to grab onto enemies like a normal Pikmin. And they also added the new winged Pikmin, which are pretty cool. They're not very good at fighting, but they are able to fly over water and other obstacles, all while carrying things, which makes them very helpful for gathering resources. And though they're not as cute as the purple Pikmin or demonic looking as the white, I think they're far more balanced, allowing for better puzzles in the game. Being on the Wii U meant this was the first Pikmin game to jump into the world of HD. And everything from the world you explore to the character models, and especially the fruit you gather, all look insane.
Now, as you can tell by my complexion, I don't eat a lot of fruit. But if they look like that, I probably would.
I love how all of the names of the fruit are all something wild. Of course, they don't know the name, so saying something like Cupid's grenade is hilarious. At first, I didn't think having 3 separate characters to control was going to work well, but I'm willing to admit when I am wrong, and this is one of those times. The 3 characters work really well. Being able to switch between all 3 on the fly is very nice, making it so you can multitask extremely easily. And being able to throw the other characters like Pikmin in order to access areas that you weren't able to before is a super nice touch that makes exploring this world even more fun. There were other quality of life improvements too, like now all Pikmin share 1 onion.
They can have the rest of mine.
Being able to take out however many Pikmin you want from one location is so much nicer, because having to run to 3 separate onions in the other games was just a pain. Control-wise, this game plays extremely well. Using the Wiimote and Nunchuck in order to play is very nice, but having to bounce back and forth between the Wiimote and Nunchuck and the gamepad for cutscenes isn't very fun. The characters all have their own co-pad, and during the story, they will call each other on their co-pad, which looks very similar to a Wii U gamepad, and in order to get the most out of the story, you have to pick up the gamepad and look at it there. And having to bounce back and forth between controllers was something that happened a lot on the Wii U, and it's just not intuitive for the player. In my opinion, it's worth it because I'm able to play on the Wiimote and Nunchuck, but it's still one of those design choices that makes you think,
was somebody drinking while making this game?
I could go on for days about what makes Pikmin 3 one of the best games on the Wii U and one of my favorite games of all time, but for a while the only thing I ever wanted was to get this game on the Switch. And luckily that happened with Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Although you can't play with the Wiimote and Nunchuck, I really think that both versions of this game are perfect, because this version of the game improved things that I didn't even think needed to be changed, all for the better. Having Pikmin 3 available on the go is already something I always wanted. Sure, playing in handheld isn't as fun, but I could play this while in jury duty, so I can't complain. They changed the lock-on system to be a lot more fluid, making it so when you lock on an enemy, you lock on that enemy. Having your Pikmin charge doesn't require you to lock on anymore, you just need to press X and whatever Pikmin you have selected will charge forward with the might of Zeus. They got rid of all of the annoying gamepad moments, so everything takes place on one screen like it should have in the first place. They brought back the Piclopedia, so if you're someone who likes to really see everything in a game, you have something that will log all of that for you. And one thing I didn't think I was going to enjoy as much as I do, they have a full split screen campaign. You and a friend can take on the entire game together in split screen, which I didn't think was going to work very well considering I like being able to manage everything myself, but playing with a friend just adds to the fun. There's other moments in both Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 3 Deluxe that allow you to play in split screen, like Bingo Battle, one of the game modes that has caused me the most chest pain in my life. And from Pikmin 2 to Pikmin 3, split screen has always felt more like a novelty, like they included it just to say the game is multiplayer, but this makes the game feel like a true multiplayer experience. Another great thing they added was the side stories, which allows you to see what happened to Olimar when he crash landed on the planet for the third time.
Whatever it is, it's crazy that he can crash a spaceship multiple times and get to keep his license, but I go a little bit too fast in the school zone and they call it reckless endangerment of a child.
And all of it came together to make one of the best Pikmin experiences of all time. Pikmin 2 came out in 2004 and Pikmin 3 came out in 2013, so given that track record, it was going to be a while before we got our next Pikmin game, but surprisingly we did get a new Pikmin game in 2017, being Hey Pikmin.
No, it's fine, I'll wait.
Hey Pikmin released for the 3DS in 2017. You know, the year that the Switch came out and a lot of companies started making Switch games? Yeah, it's fine. This is one of the times that Nintendo took one of their beloved IPs and changed just enough where it keeps its core formula, but offers a brand new gameplay experience for anyone to try out. And of course, because this was on the 3DS, it had to be a 2D platformer.
Just what we needed, a new 2D platformer on the 3DS.
As per usual, Olimar is on a flight where he crashes terribly, landing on a planet inhabited by Pikmin. At a certain point, I start to wonder if Olimar is just crashing on purpose. He says he wants to go back to his wife and child, but does he really? After crash landing on the planet, you find out that your ship is destroyed, and you need to find a missing component and refuel with the brand new Sparklium. So your goal is to explore this world, collect treasures, and get to the end of any given level. They do a surprisingly good job blending 2D platforming mechanics with the Pikmin mechanics, so if you're a fan of the Pikmin series, you're gonna get at least a little bit of the itch scratched. Each level has you exploring as Olimar because I guess Louie has the day off, and you're given a selection of Pikmin from Pikmin 3, which means I can't have my son back, so this game is immediately a -4 out of 10. The Pikmin work very similarly to how they would in Pikmin 3, retaining most of the qualities they had in that game, where you throw your Pikmin as projectiles to solve issues and collect treasure. Luckily this time you don't have to carry all of that treasure back with you. Olimar just opens a portal and sends it directly to the ship. Why couldn't I do that in the other games? Unlike a typical Pikmin game where you're exploring an open area, this has a very linear level system that gives you whatever Pikmin you might need to solve the problem. You still have to worry about your Pikmin getting eaten, but even if they do, it's not the end of the world because there are various points in each level that will give you new Pikmin, though there is a reward for keeping all 20 Pikmin alive at the end of a level.
Is the reward being able to go back and play Pikmin 3?
You use the touchscreen to throw Pikmin, which in my opinion worked really well. I never had any more issues here than I would with any of the other Pikmin games. Throwing them on the ledges can be a little difficult because this uses the old DS trope of having both screens display the level. So in that little lost area, I would have some issues, but I can write that off as mostly being a skill issue. The enemies in the environment work really well in 2D, and honestly, I think this game's biggest problem is that it was just okay. When Nintendo reworks one of their IPs, it usually is taken one of two ways. Either people absolutely love it and demand nothing but that from now on, or they absolutely despise it. But somehow, Hey Pikmin is right in the middle, where this game's biggest problem is that it's just okay. I've noticed a lot of people who hate this game do so because it is not a typical Pikmin adventure, but unfortunately, it's worse than that. It's just average.
Who's to say what average is? I would say it's above average.
Yeah, keep dreaming.
The 3DS had too many 2D platformers as it is, so this kind of fell under the radar for a lot of people. But if you're a Pikmin fan who also happens to like 2D platformers, I think there's a good chance you'll enjoy this game. But the most recent Pikmin game that we got was Pikmin 4. After a 10-year wait, we finally got a new mainline Pikmin game, and it is incredible. Don't get me wrong, Hey Pikmin was fine, and Pikmin Bloom was something, but neither of them can come close to Pikmin 4. I will always be a fan of Pikmin 3 because it is the game I have played the most, but as far as the sheer quality and quantity goes, this game is in a league of its own. The game starts with having you make your own character, something I didn't expect but love a lot, and after crashing your spaceship, Again, you're tasked with exploring this planet and saving Captain Olimar and every member of the Rescue Corps. After a 10-year wait and many times where Nintendo said the game was almost done, getting a Pikmin game that looks this good is something I always wanted. Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 3 Deluxe look great, but this game has some of the best visuals Nintendo has ever put out. Compared to the last few Pikmin games, this changes up the formula a lot. Instead of the typical landing spot from the last few games, you have a full home base. And the more Rescue Corps members you save, the more people there are at your home base, who have a good amount of dialogue options and side quests to do, which gives you more to do than ever before. The order you rescue these people in is always going to be the same, so it gives you more freedom to do what you want when you want to. I will say having a home base does kind of hurt the overall feeling of the game, because in the first 3 games, you are mostly alone on a desolate planet. So coming back to a home base with a gaggle of people waiting for you is definitely a different feel, but it doesn't come anywhere close to ruining the game. Pikmin 2 and 3 had a focus on managing multiple people, which allowed you to use your time a little more wisely, and it's a part of these games I really enjoyed. But that didn't carry over, and for some reason I'm not upset about it, mostly because what serves as your new partner is Oatchi. Don't let his disturbing eyes fool you, he is a great companion. He can work as a typical companion taking care of Pikmin, but you can also upgrade him at your home base, which is incredibly nice. You can ride on him with your Pikmin, which allows you to charge into enemies and do an incredible amount of damage, and he can jump.
You see, after checking the law, apparently it's illegal to jump in Pikmin, so I have to contact the authorities.
As much as I do miss having 3 characters like in Pikmin 3, this works incredibly well and I have 0 problems with it. There are 2 brand new types of Pikmin. First being the Ice Pikmin, which looks like a rock Pikmin that got really cold, but this is arguably the most useful because it freezes bodies of water and enemies in place, which in my opinion is pretty overpowered, but also I'm not going to complain about that. And the brand new Glow Pikmin, which are only usable at night. Yeah, you know how the Pikmin world usually falls apart at night? Well, they made an entirely new section of the game where you can only play during this time of the day. During this time of day, you're only able to use the new Glow Pikmin, and this whole game mode has you protecting towers in order to get medicine. I have no idea how I never thought Pikmin could work as a tower defense game, but this is one of my favorite parts of the entire game. It also could be because I just love exploring the Pikmin world, especially at night, but even though it's only a side objective, it is still very fun. All of the other Pikmin types return to this game, including my favorite purple guy, so I can finally sleep well knowing that he's okay. For the sake of simplicity, you can only have 3 types of Pikmin out at any given time, and as much as that bothered me at first, I do understand why. Having to sort through 5 different types of Pikmin in Pikmin 3, including the captains and the bombs, ended up having too many options, where there were a lot of times where I would try to scroll to a specific kind of Pikmin, and end up selecting the wrong thing or throwing a captain, and it was just not intuitive. So limiting it to 3 just makes sense, especially if there are this many types. One of the new features I absolutely love is the ability to auto-select Pikmin, where the game just tells you what Pikmin will be most efficient, and it saves a good amount of time. Unlike the other Pikmin games though, you don't start out with 100 Pikmin. You begin the game being able to have 20, and over time you upgrade your capacity back up to 100, which is fine. I understand why they did it, and they did a good job of having the early game puzzles be very streamlined and simple, but I like being able to hop in and just get an army of Pikmin at my disposal, and not being able to do that is kind of annoying, but my son's back, so what am I gonna do, complain? Just like every other Pikmin game, there are so many collectibles. There are a bunch of Nintendo fan service items like the Game Boy Advance SP in the beginning of the game that are scattered throughout the world, and finding them is always a great time. The references go from in your face to decently obscure, making exploring for treasure even more fun. Sparklium is back, so if you played Hey Pikmin, you'll probably recognize that. And considering this was a lot of people's first time playing Pikmin, and I would say that most people haven't played Hey Pikmin, I felt the need to point that out. But the single best thing they added to this game was the return to caves. Pikmin 2 had caves, and a lot of people loved it, and others,
oh please, not this again.
But to me, bringing back caves was a great idea, and they did a fantastic job making these feel new and fresh, and not painfully designed like they were in Pikmin 2. Entering a cave allows you to select Pikmin that you want to use, and every single cave allows you to take up to 100 Pikmin, regardless if you have that amount unlocked or not. Unlike in Pikmin 2, where time freezes when you enter a cave, it just moves a lot slower. The day won't end while you're in a cave, but you can exit a cave to the countdown, which can be kind of annoying. But where the magic happens is inside of the caves themselves, and they are all designed incredibly well. In Pikmin 2, all caves were randomly generated, which was nice for replay value, but in Pikmin 4, they are all intentionally designed to be gimmicky and fun in every possible way. The caves have themes and atmospheres that work really well, and puzzles that require a good amount of critical thinking. Every cave feels unique, and even when I replay this game, it doesn't feel like I'm going back and trudging through the same thing over and over. And compared to the caves in Pikmin 2, though it doesn't have as much replay value, they are still incredibly well designed and fun, which makes re-exploring them time and time again still fun every time I do it. And the game itself is decently long for the main story, but the game doesn't stop when the credits roll. There is plenty of side content to do once the game is over, including new levels to explore, and a game mode where you play as Olimar in a Pikmin 1 experience. Playing as Olimar using only red, yellow, and blue Pikmin is incredibly fun. There is a strict 15-day time limit similar to Pikmin 1, which means they essentially put a mini Pikmin 1 inside of Pikmin 4.
Pikmin 4 gave me everything I ever wanted and more. I just hope I don't have to wait until 2033 to play the next Pikmin game.